Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at a few new features from our latest point release, Liberty version 5, build 8.28. This release is so full of new features that we're actually for the first time doing two videos. This one will cover cataloging OPAC, the borrower experience, and general changes, and the companion video will cover details in circulation, serials, and acquisitions. So let's get started looking at the new features. The first one for cataloging is actually starting an import. We have added a document import to Liberty. This means that you'll be able to have brief resource records created automatically with these documents attached. Very little effort on your part to be able to provide full text searching. So I'll show you how it works. I'm just going to add some documents. You can add them individually or you can put them in zip files, which I've done. There are 3 documents in here. I'm going to go ahead and upload it. We have put some limits in place, about 10 files at a time. But if you put documents in a zip, they are considered only one file. And if you put the documents in folders before you zip, additionally, you'll get an extra tag for the folder that we found the document in. Will you ask us to create metadata? Now, we're not pulling that out of the individual documents. They are the info or properties of the individual files. So depending on where you're getting your documents, that may work well for you or not as well. We can extract title, author, and subject information if it's available. Set the bibliographic type that you want these documents to be and the GMD. And finally, if you want to set any security on them, you can do that. And then just go ahead and upload. Now, not unlike if you import bibliographic data such as MARC, if you've set a peak time, and this is a large import, it will happen in the middle of the night. If it's smaller or you haven't designated peak time and file size, then it's going to get caught by the background processor that runs about every 5 or 10 minutes. So we'll give this just a minute and see if it will work, and it has. So let's go and look at these documents. So these are the 3 documents that were inside of my little zip file. Let's have a closer look. You'll see that I'm listed as the author of this. This is again from the file, not from the text of this Word document. And we have the tag that we set at the time of import, and it would have had an extra one if I'd put it in a folder. Can you do more with this? Of course. You can add images, you can add more information of all sorts. It's a resource record. But the value is that this is already full text available as long as your document can be analyzed for text. So we're very excited about this new feature, which people have been waiting for a while. Some other things we've done in Catalog. So let's go and find a resource with more than one attachment, so I can show you how we're giving you the power now to position attachments. So this record has 2 attachments. They are in an order based on a parameter. You'll see the reference to it in a minute, that either say alphabetical or backwards alphabetical or oldest first or newest first. But we've added this new feature, which is attachment sort order, and this will give you the full list of your attachments, and if you edit, you'll then be able to change the order and then save. Notice that it is referencing parameter 2035, which is what you've said is your natural order for your Liberty. And we also give you a reset button if you ever want to go back to whatever 2035 is saying it should be at the moment. So that's how to manage multiple attachments. We've also done some work for multiple URLs. So let's go and find the record that has multiple URLs, which this one does. Now, if you are MARC based and use MARC as your resource, anything that you do in MARC will overwrite what I'm about to show you, and also the positioning of your 856 fields really is the thing that will determine your URLs. Let me edit this record for those who use the resource record, and I'll show you that you can highlight one or the other and position it now. You do this here in the work area where the multiple URLs are put. I also want to say a word for some other things that we've done with URLs. This is slightly older functionality, but I think it's worth a quick review. The URL field assumes a single URL. And by the way, if you load MARC with multiple URLs, usually the first one is here and the others are put in related, because related are built to be multiple URLs. I'm sure you've all, both in email and websites, know that you can put what we're calling a mask on the URL. This is sometimes called a display name or a public name. And for a single URL, it's in a unique field, which you can use. If it's not on your screen, use our tool Pages to put it there. With related URLs, since there would need to be multiple masks, we've put it here under the information button. So as you can see, this is set, and we might just change that to be NETJMC just for fun and submit it. And now what you'll see is that this is what will show in your OPAC, but of course it will launch the full URL. So just a bit about masks, because I'm going to talk a little more about that in a minute. The next thing that I want to show you is searching for URLs. We didn't give you a search box, nor can you put the URL directly into any words. But if you know the name of the field, and they're pretty straightforward, you can search now. So if you use URL equals, and then do something like this using quotes, and note I've used a truncation also, and then search, that will be successful. And if you look at this record, you will see that this is in the URL field. So the release notes have all 4 names, because you can search not only for the URL and related URLs, but also for those masks that I've just shown you. So I could go back and search for the mask name. So check the release notes for the field names for all 4 of those fields so that you can search both your URLs and the masks. And speaking of masks, we've given you another nice tool. Many of our libraries have used the mask, especially on the single URL, to be some kind of an instruction, especially if it's relevant to a specific publisher, for example. So sometimes you might want to change the instruction on many records, but not the URLs themselves. So we've added the URL mask to global change. So you would gather together the correct number of records, find the field URL mask right here, and then change it from whatever it is to what the new value should be. Very straightforward, will save you a lot of time. Next stop will be here in the weeded records. A few releases ago, we gave you the option to force a reason into why you were withdrawing anything or weeding it. And now we'll give you the opportunity to search weeded things by the reason that you weeded, but again, you have to use the field name. So what you use is reason for weed, and contains is very useful here. Let's do it this way. And this is a record that was weeded. And you can see right here that it was weeded because it was lost. And the final thing in cataloging really is a small change to bib types. For those of you who use interests, we had a request to not send out the interest when a record exists, but to wait rather until there is a copy, for the obvious reason that it's not really available until it's a copy on some kinds of material. So there's a new field you'll see here, interest notification requires copy. It defaults to off, and if you'd like to use that new feature, just go into the relevant bib types, edit them, and change it. Now let's go over to OPAC and look at some things that we've done there. The first is a change to the way that slideshows are positioned. We're just using dots. It looks a little more modern rather than the numbers, and similar to our new slider. And aside, because we're making so much use of images, that we know there were a few and different situations where Google Images weren't managing quite right. We've made several changes, and we think we've improved that. Another thing that we've changed is that for those of you who use permanent loan, you'll notice that now in the OPAC it will display actually as permanent. Now, perhaps this is a perfect record set of 12 records to send out to someone who's asked me a question, but I've decided I don't want them in relevance order. I really want them nicely organized in title order. And so I resort by title, and then I use share in order to send out that shortcut. Previously, share would present these 12 titles, but not in your requested reordering. And so we fixed that, and it will now include in the link not only the titles, but the search, but also the order. Now, as I scroll down through this content, let me do that again. You may notice that the top of the screen has collapsed. We've removed both the banner and this login line to get you more real estate for the individual titles. And yes, it works both if you're doing it from a list point of view or from the tiles. The next thing I want to point out, actually from the same screen, is that previously we gave you the ability to add in addition, if you wanted, into this brief title data that appears on the initial results set. Now we've added the ability to add in corporate data. So as in the, see if I can see an example here, this is a corporate author. But because the corporate author might also include, the same record might include a personal author, it's actually a separate parameter. That's a new parameter 4238 that allows you to say, yes, include the corporate author and place it before or after the personal author. Now let's talk a little bit more about searching. You may or may not be aware that although one can search as, basic, advanced, or federated, or some of the browse searches, that is controlled really by the borrower record. And if your borrower takes the time to go to details and you give them the ability to edit, they can actually set the kind of search. Some of our libraries that want everyone to have advanced search, for example, will do global changes on their borrowers to make sure that they all have advanced search. But that doesn't help when you add new borrowers because they would use the basic default. So we've added a new parameter, 3331, that allows you to set what default for type of search you will use when you're adding new borrowers. For our libraries that use self-circulation, you may see something a bit different. Notice that I brought up self-circulation, but that I did not enter my own name, but that you see that I am identified. This is an option, not a requirement. It is actually a privilege in the privilege area and the user privilege area. Under the self-circulation privileges, there is a new privilege called Allow Loaning Resources to Other Borrowers. I know that it talks about other borrowers, but what it has the effect of doing, if you remove it, it's set on by default, is that you lock your borrower in. Now all I have to do is scan the barcode to complete my self-circulation, and I can't change it to anyone else's record. Separately, there's a new parameter 5508, which will allow you to add in the email loan receipt. This would send an email of the current loans, typically used after you do an additional loan, and it is modeled after the feature in Circulation Desk. When you print loans, one option is to email. Somewhat related to this, for those libraries that allow self-registration during OPAC, when someone self-registers, let's go and look quickly at the borrower area. There is an option here in the function menu for pending borrowers. And once you assign an alias and approve it, the documentation has always suggested that an email goes out to your borrower, but that has not been the case. And it will be now. We have made that change. There are several changes that will also affect your borrower that I'll put generally under the topic of privacy, and those will be covered in the other video, so please do tune in for that. And then I just have a few general topics that I'd like to cover now. One is for those who use what it's called the color picker. So if you are here, let's just go back to OPAC, and let's say that you decide that you're changing some of the colors within an information box. That's a place where we use this. So let me just edit this. And here you'll see that you can choose different colors. This is in several places throughout Liberty. But previously, you had to be using either the browser Chrome or Firefox in order to add in the hex code. And if you're trying to model this on your organization's website, you'll want to have the very precise shade, and that is controlled by the hex code. So we now have fixed it so that both IE and Safari have the ability to add in that hex reference. Some cool things that we've done with reports. If we go here to circulation reports and we do a report on one of the, say, the search statistics, you'll notice that there is a date element in the report. I'm going to just set this back maybe to the beginning of the month and then run the report. And I'll be able then to download my report. But as always, I'm also able to schedule it. But for these reports that made the most sense to do for sections of time, it never made sense to schedule them because in my example, you would always get August. So now we've added something called report period. You can actually say, as far as I'm concerned, I always want the month to date, or I always want the previous month, and please email it to me at this time. All of the rest of the scheduling is as it's always been. But you're able to amend the report with these time periods. So we hope that that will increase the use of the report scheduling so that you can have reports delivered in email regularly. Some other things that we've done that are in the general category also include things like federated search using the Google search. If you have created a custom federated search using Google, we have replaced that old one with the Google custom search engine part of federated search, and there's a good document. Just search Google and help and you'll see it. And if you've done any of those on your own, you'll just need to reset them with the new engine. We've added a number of new fields to the custom reports. I'll review these again in the next video, but acquisitions has a number of custom fields, the user 1 through 10, the list 1 through 10, and 2 notes. Serial subscription now includes the supplier name. Resources now has related URLs. And we removed one, which is the borrower password. So if you're using custom reports, have a look because we've added some additional options in those areas. And the last thing I want to mention is here in the user privileges. So for those of you who are responsible for working with user privileges, you may have sometime unwittingly added a privilege into one of the OPAC privileges that instantly turned your OPAC user into a low-level staff user, and all of your licenses were immediately used up. So we think that we have given you a new tool that will help you with this. Notice this staff license. That will light for any set of privileges that has used privileges that use licenses versus the typical OPAC, which is free. So for example, if I look at administration privileges, you'll see that there are actually almost 3,500 staff operations in there. But let me go back to the list, and you'll see that the OPAC Basic doesn't even have the button because there are no staff operations. So we hope that that extra help will keep you from turning your OPAC users unwittingly into staff users. So we hope that you and your borrowers will enjoy these new enhancements. Please look for the next 828 video on the details for circulation serials, acquisitions, and that little bit about the privacy features.